Hi, back in session with Professor P. Today we're going to talk about sex, gender, and culture. Follow along in your concept sheet. We'll go through all the terms. I hope you guys are staying healthy and happy. All right, let's start with gender differences. Gender differences are the difference in cultural expectations for males and for females. Now, sex and sexual differences are purely biological. Gender is a cultural construct, okay? So when we look at something like sexual differences, we talk about a term called sexual dimorphism. Sexual dimorphism is basically the differences between humans, the differences between males and females within our societies. Sexual dimorphism wants to analyze those differences. So if we look at males in our society, typically on average, they're taller. On average, they have more muscle mass, right? Bigger lungs, right? Hair on different parts of their body. For women, unfortunately, we have more fat. I'm still pissed off about that. And we have wider pelvises for giving birth, right? On average, we're shorter, right? We have larger breasts. And then obviously those differences between our lower anatomy as well. So when we talk about sexual dimorphism, they're actually the physical and the biological differences between us, okay? Now, let's get to gender roles. Gender roles are culturally assigned roles to gender. Culturally assigned roles to gender. Why do these become important? And I'm going to tell you why. Because we want to analyze the theory between the gender division of labor. Why is it the males and females within our society get access to different jobs? What does that have to do with gender and sex? Let's get to the theories about the worldwide division of labor right there on your concept sheets. The very first one is called the strength theory. The strength theory basically says this, that males actually have more strength, quick bursts of energy, right? More muscle mass. Within that, they end up getting the jobs that are going to require more strength, right? So in the book, it talks about like being a lumberjack, right? Or being somebody who works with wood. But do you guys still think that theory exists today? Do you think males are still doing those male required jobs, or that we're leveling out a bit? Think about it. So for example, if we look at construction workers, if we look at welders, if we look at movers, if we look at athletes, if we look at certain, right, kinds of jobs, are they still male-centered? For some of you, you may have to choose a critical thinking question from this chapter. There's a few critical thinking questions you get to choose from. You get to choose from number 2 or number 3. Number 2 is basically says, will male and female athletics be the same, right? It questions that. What factors lead into, right, the leveling out within athletics? One of the things that we talk about is there still a division? Will men and women ever be the same in athletics? Is there always going to be a difference? Read question number 2 on your Think On It questions about those kinds of circumstances. If you answer that question and you choose to answer that women and men are, always going to be the same in athletics, there's always going to be a difference in athletics, you may use media. You may give examples of like NBA versus, the WNBA. You may use softball and baseball. You may look at, endorsements, economics. Look at all this stuff in female soccer. They want equal rights. They've won the World Cup, right? Why is there still a big division? Look at your personal lives. Do you see a division in athletics in high school? Do you see, people favoring athletes, right? Really analyze and critically think about the question and the kind of evidence you're going to provide to state your position in your case. The third question has to do with politics. If you want to go political, what factors will ever lead into a female head of state? Are we ever going to have a female president in the United States? What about the countries that already have female heads of states, right? So when you choose a question, really think about how you're going to answer it. Choose your position, fight for your position. Don't show both sides. If you say there's never going to be a female president of the United States, give me the evidence to back that up. If you say we're leveling out, there may be one in the future, why? Look at voting. Look at females. Look at jobs in our society, right? Look at what's going on around the world, right? Remember, you have to back up your claim. Use your rubric when you're writing this. All right, let's get to, we just talked about strength theory. Let's get to compatibility with childcare theory. And remember, always question these theories. You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to like them. You just have to try to understand them. So compatibility with childcare theory basically states that women stay close to home for childcare and breastfeeding. Maybe they do, maybe they don't in today's society, right? Maybe they're commuting. Maybe they don't have to stay home for breastfeeding. Maybe they have breast pumps. Maybe they have formula. Really dig deep into analyzing these. All right, number 3, economy of effort theory. It's purely an economical theory. It basically states that the genders are going to do the things that are suited for them because it's economically efficient. So if a woman gives birth to children, she's just going to do the childcare. Why teach a man how to do it? If a man has the strength, he's going to work with the lumber. Why have the women do it? It's economically insufficient. So it's really an economical kind of theoretical approach. All right, number 4 is hilarious. It's the expendability theory. It basically states that men are always given the dangerous jobs because they're expendable. Because a woman can actually mate with other men. And she could have children with other men. So you only need a few to repopulate. So funny, right? We got to critically think that too. If all these men start to die off, right, will that affect population, right? Are they really expendable in our world, right? I don't know. We'll think about that. All right, let's get to primary and secondary subsistence. Primary subsistence are those main food getting strategies, hunting and gathering. A primary within your household is the main economical earner. Secondary is really processing the food or really doing that domestic labor. One of the things anthropologists really want to analyze is who in the household are primaries and who are secondaries. Raise your hand. How many of you, your dad was a primary and your mom wasn't? Or both your parents were primaries bringing economics into the household? If so, if you both had primaries, for example, both mom and dad were out of the household, who actually came home and did the secondary labor? I'm not talking about a barbecue. Who actually did the childcare, the cooking, the cleaning, right? The vacuuming, right? Doing all of the household labor, right? In addition to being a primary. Think about your own family structures. Think about who was contributing in what aspect. It doesn't mean any are better or worse. It just means who's doing contributions to which part of the labor. All right. All right, let's move on. Why have men always dominated in the political arena? Interestingly enough, when we look at the political realm in anthropology, 85% of surveyed society in the field of anthropology, men have been leaders. Why is it? So there's a lot of theories behind this to sort of understand it. And one of the theories that they talk about in here is men's role in warfare. That warfare is actually related to the political arena, right? They battled more, even historically. Another theory is weaponry, that they controlled and no weapons. Again, part of sort of like that political arena. Another one is the strength theory, right? Because they were more powerful. Another one that's really interesting and really non-scientific is the height theory, that because men are taller, they exude more power. So height can play a factor in why men have always been leaders in the political arena. So that's one of the things we want to analyze. Why and how are they? And those become important to understanding sort of the political realm in our society. All right. One of the other areas they talk about is why do men fight more? There's different reasons. One, because culturally they're taught to, it's acceptable for boys to be aggressive. Boys have testosterone, boys to be aggressive. All of these kinds of things lead into why males fight, right? Even looking at violence in video games, violence in music, it doesn't mean those are going to propel people to be violent. It just means it's okay, right? When we look at these kinds of realms for men to be fighting and battling, right? It's acceptable within a society. Men even playing violence in sports, football, boxing, wrestling, right? All of those say it's really okay to fight. It's really okay to sort of illustrate aggression as a male within society. It doesn't mean females aren't aggressive, right? Sometimes I want to punch somebody's lights out. All right, let's turn your concept sheet over. Gender stratification. Gender stratification is just this. It's actually analyzing the unequal access to the three advantages by the genders. So one of the things that they actually talk about in this section is the idea that women and men are going to have different access to different things. So why is it in some societies women will have high status or low status? It's typically always related to primary subsistence. Okay, so when women work outside of the household and they bring in an income, they're typically going to have higher status within a society. Okay, it's typically related to their participation in primary subsistence. That's always going to elevate, right, a woman in a society. All right, personality differences, the next terms on your concept sheet. They talk about what I just talked about, aggression and responsibility. Typically, boys are more aggressive and they typically are able to exhibit that aggression cross-culturally. Girls are typically, on average, more responsible. It's sort of related to motherhood and nurturing and girls helping others. It doesn't mean boys and girls don't exhibit those other characteristics. It just means they're really associated with that gender. Okay, it doesn't mean if I'm a girl, I'm not going to be aggressive or a boy's not going to be nurturing. It's just saying there's more of a higher probability and it's more accepted culturally. All right, let's get to sexuality. When we talk about sexuality in the field of anthropology, what we're really talking about, right, and becomes important is we're talking about the variation within a society where sexual activity is permitted before marriage, during marriage, or after marriage. We really want to analyze these terms and analyze sexuality in terms of permissiveness versus restrictiveness. Where is it permissible to, have premarital, intercourse? Where is it restrictable, right? And why? So we analyze these kinds of things cross-culturally. Let's get to premarital sex. That's sex before marriage. In some societies, they talk about in your book, Native Americans and certain indigenous people in Mexico, there is no intercourse before marriage. It's taboo, okay? There's not even supposed to be contact in some societies. Virginity can be highly valued, right? In some societies, the Trobriand Islanders we talked about before. Among the Trobriand Islanders, right, premarital sex is encouraged among boys and girls, right? They might marry at a young age, so they encourage this kind of behavior, right? So we have to really remember that. Let's get to extramarital affairs and extramarital sex. 69% of world societies, men have affairs. 69% of world societies, men have affairs. 57% women have affairs. So we're really looking at a 70 to 60%, right? A 10% difference in essence. One of the things I always ask my students is, what does that say about our concept of marriage? Religion, right? How can we sort of analyze all of these extramarital affairs? And, right, is it related back to things like the double standard, right? With these kinds of statistics, we have to really question the state of marriage within our society and cross-culturally. All right, let's get to time and frequency. This is sort of a fun area in the analysis of sex and marriage. Time and frequency really wants to analyze that, right? Looking at societies and sort of their taboos and their ideologies between time and frequency and sexual intercourse. One of the things I thought was interesting in your book, the Chenchu of India, they believe that if you have intercourse at night and you become pregnant, a child may be born blind, right? Sort of interesting kinds of taboos, funny things. Another kind of analysis we do is we analyze things like homosexuality, heterosexuality, bisexuality, all in relation to permissiveness versus restrictiveness. We analyze the sexual behavior the same across the board, right? So, for example, if we want to look at homosexuality, we would say, why is it restrictable in some societies? Why is it permissible? Why can it be valued, right? One of my favorite ones is the Papago in the southwestern United States, they have something called the Nights of Saturnalia. It's spelled like nighttime, Nights of Saturnalia. And basically, this is a time period during certain periods and times of the year. And at certain times, they're supposed to express and encourage their homosexual identity, right? Male transvestites are supposed to express themselves. In certain societies, right, this is not taboo. This is completely acceptable and encouraged and valued in a society, all right? So it becomes important to sort of understand that. We analyze heterosexuality and bisexuality the same way. Why is it encouraged, right? What does it have to do with reproduction or non-reproduction? What does it have to do with policy and economics? Why is all this permissive and restrictable behavior valued or not valued within a society? I hope you enjoyed sex, gender, and culture. Remember, sex is biological, gender is cultural. Remember all those gender constructs. Let's think about this before we end. If we look at gender, we look at how is it that we would sort of create females, right? We could look at, direct and indirect things. Like, let's look at things like Barbie. Take Toys R Us, for example. You walk into Toys R Us, even though it closed down now, but you walk into Toys R Us, what's on a girl's side? Pink, Barbies, kitchens, that damn microwave oven, the little mops, concepts of beauty and makeup, right? Dress up. Usually behind the female section and the girl section is all the baby clothes. In the boys section, what do you have? Nerf guns, Legos for critical thinking, right? You have sports stuff there. You have trucks and cars, video games. Behind them, you usually have the sports stuff like bikes and skateboards, right? It's all creating this gender construct. You also have things like our parents may do. A lot of boys may be given chores on the outside, right? They're socialized to go outside, go mow the lawn, take out the garbage, go in the outside world. Girls may be given chores inside the house, cleaning, cooking with mom, right? Think about how your family's enculturated you, how they socialized you, directly or indirectly. Sometimes it's not, you're a girl, this is what we're going to do, but we do it by chore assignment. Look at Barbie. Some of you, in some of my classes, not all of you, may read an article called Measuring Up to Barbie, right? How did Barbie construct an ideology and a gender, right? All of these go into play of creating who we are in our society. Even the way we speak to our little boys and our little girls. We coo our little girls a lot. We talk to them softer. Imagine a little boy falls down. Get up. Don't cry. Don't be a sissy. Be masculine. We're creating that masculine identity already. Fun subject. I hope you guys enjoyed the chapter on sex, gender, culture. See you for the next session with Professor B. Have a great day. Bye-bye.